Integrated reporting embraces the concept of integrated thinking, and that involves a board or the leaders of a public sector entity applying their minds as to the resources used by the public sector entity and how those resources are used in creating, let's call it the social profit in the public sector entity, and what is its output trying to achieve, and what is the impact of its output as an outcome. So all these issues need to be decided on an integrated basis. The reality is that any public sector entity is managed on an integrated basis. It's not functionally or operationally separated. So if it's being run on an integrated basis, the resources are being used, human resources, natural resources, the relationships with patients, if it's a hospital, the suppliers to the hospital are all on an interrelated and interconnected basis. And they're not separated, they're not in silos. And consequently, we shouldn't be reporting in silos. If you're going to report in a balanced manner, so that your stakeholders have understanding, it's got to be in clear, concise and understandable language. And it's got to be communicated as to exactly what the state of play is in the entity. And unfortunately or unfortunately, depending which side you look at it, is an entity has to comply with the law and the regulations, which in the wisdom of politicians is relevant or pertinent to that entity. So you comply with it, but then the leaders have to apply their mind to this massive information and really extract that which is material to the organization, defined as that which impacts on the organization's ability to create value in the longer term. And value could either be a monetary value or it could be a social value. Well, the organizations themselves will, I think, develop greater trust and confidence from stakeholders. Don't forget, a public sector entity has many more stakeholders than a private sector entity operating in the UK, assuming that the private sector entity is not a multinational and is a UK-focused private sector company. It has a limited number of shareholders, whereas a public sector entity has every citizen in the UK is a stakeholder, particularly the taxpayer. Well, exactly, because you have to look at your resources being used and the relationships with your stakeholders. And on an integrated basis, you can then work out what is going to be your value creation short, medium and long term. If you do not think about that and you think in silos, you're actually creating more expense, and you can actually reduce the entity's expenditure by thinking on an integrated basis. There's been a very good reaction. You heard today yourself, the World Bank is adopting integrated thinking and going to do an integrated report. At the last webinar we had over 70 people speaking, 34 public sector entities from around the globe adopting, thinking about and willing to adopt integrated thinking and doing an integrated report. And as you know, SIPFA has joined the IRC, which was sponsored by the World Bank to create the public sector pioneer network. I think very much, particularly at local level. Let's take Manchester, it's a good example. Manchester is already starting to integrate with the national health system. So I think it's a great example that you can actually integrate some of the public sector entities with the local council, and I think it's a good idea. It's a political idea, I know, but driven by politicians, but I think it's a good idea because you actually have a focus in that area and then you have shared interest. Everybody has interest in what happens in that matched area.